Everybody that I know that's really good has a network of people. Now, it's usually a tight network. You got to have a fishing network, okay? I've heard people say, oh, I've learned everything on my own. Yeah, well, you're probably not very good. Now you got the internet where people can get information and stuff like that, but there's nothing better than a network of people.
Well, good evening and welcome to CFN Live 2025. Very excited about what this year pertains to, what this year is going to end up looking like. But I will say this, it is going to be extremely busy. First and foremost, Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a successful, healthy, prosperous, enjoyable, fun-filled holiday season. And I look forward to 2025 with you, for you, in hopes that it is better than 2024. And for some, I know there's only up from here. So, if you did have a bad 2024, it's unfortunate. And hopefully 2025 is going to be better. I will say this, based on the announcement that happened today, the only way is up here, baby. That's all I can say. And it's a shame it's not going to happen sooner than later. There's still a delay, but at least, unfortunately, we got what this country deserves, and we're gonna have some change. Regardless, we're gonna have some change, and I think that's the most important thing. First and foremost, as I said, Happy New Year to you, Stephen. Thanks so much for joining us, and of course, all the support over the years. Same to you, Tony. Can't say enough about you, Lloyd. Just right back at you. We've got a lot of Saskatchewan content here. Holy smokes. Nice to see you, Rob. Shane's in the house. Shane, I'm hoping that we'll be able to reach out to Hotbox and plan a day, at least out on the ice, some kind of meet and greet. It's going to be last minute just because we weren't sure what the conditions were. And, of course, our show season is starting to get extremely busy, but stay tuned to that. I'm hoping to be able to talk to Donnie and Ashley and get something organized for us. Richard, thanks again, buddy, for all you do. We are going to be talking about that aerator that you and I discussed earlier this week, or maybe it was last. No, I think it was on the weekend. Lawrence has done some research for us, so we're going to find out a little bit more about that up in the Northwest Territories, so stay tuned. Happy 10th anniversary. Great segue, Lloyd. I couldn't have said it better than you did. It is our 10th anniversary. And it's hard to believe that, we started this, Red and I, a bunch of years back. But 2015 was when we first did a live. It is now 2025. I can't imagine it's been 10 years already. Hard to believe. So congratulations to all of you. We've lasted and we've survived, and we continue to push forward and grow. And before we went live, we were talking with the fellas, and we have so many things to announce that are upcoming that we just can't right now because we're just waiting for pieces to fall into place. But there's a lot going to be on the go in 2025. That's about all I can say. And I'm looking forward to it all. I'm looking forward to seeing you folks along with it. Sparkus is in the house. How you doing, Sparkus? Dean's here. Always a pleasure to see you. Corey's in the house. Can you believe it, Corey? 10 years. Been doing this for 10 years. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. It's unthinkable. Fernando, how you doing, my friend? Yeah, absolutely. It's a happy anniversary to all of you folks that come here each and every Monday, loyal as you are, dedicated and supportive as you have been from day one, and continue to be so. And I will say that it's because of you folks that this exists. I ain't the prettiest guy, and I'm willing to admit that. Maybe not the funniest guy, maybe not the smartest when it comes to fishing, but I will say this. I get an idea of what people want from a community, what they want when it comes to content. And as I said, Walter and Steve and myself and so many others that help out in a huge way. Richard's going to be helping out as well. But there is a few things that I'm going to hold back because I want to present it to our legacy members. But We we are commemorating our 10th anniversary, and this being our 10th year. So stay tuned to that. It is going to be something pretty epic. George, thanks so much for your continued commitment and support as well. Regardless of the chirping that goes on between you and Jay, I truly appreciate the knowledge that you have, the insight, and the answers that sometimes we as anglers need to know because we don't get to see it from your perspective. So thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate that. Joe, how you doing, my friend? Kelly Willard's in the house. Happy New Year to you. Ryan Thompson, yeah, baby. Yes, sir. Yes, you were chasing PBs. I saw that. Very nice. Ed McKenzie's in the house. Ed, think of it, 10 years, dude. 10 years, I think, was the first year that we stepped on your vessel, Chasing Eyes Charters, and Red and I went out with you and James Mathias out on the Bay of Quinte. That was 10 years ago. You believe that? Unreal. You haven't aged a day, by the way, Ed, I must say. Joe, how you doing? Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for that. And, of course, one honorable person. Yeah. Well, honorable or honorably discharged, one of the two. No, I'm just kidding. It's been so many years. And again, I could go on and reflect, but I think all of it is within you guys. And I don't need to share it because you've lived it. So me bringing up old stories or what have you, I think it's as entertaining as it might be. You probably already all know them, especially the ones that come here every Monday. There's not much new, or that's old that's new to you folks. But we're going to do our best to try and not reinvent the wheel, but rehash some of the issues that we've brought up, some of the topics, some of the content that we're going to share. Because the one thing that's beautiful about fishing is there's always content. There's always content. Whether we're fishing, our American counterparts are fishing, women, children, families, resorts, lodges, charter captains, it doesn't matter. Everybody is producing content that has an iPhone, a GoPro, or any other kind of camera. If you're producing content, we truly appreciate it because I can guarantee you we've probably used some of yours over the years because we've wanted to share everything with everyone. So again, if you're out there producing content, I can guarantee you that we have used yours. Another shout out, thank you, of course, to our good buddy Richard, who has a bunch of these ready to go. If you haven't ordered yours, no issues with that. As I said, Richard would definitely, now that the postal strike is over, have no problem helping you out to find whether it's a hat, whether it's a hoodie. But as I said, we are going to be commemorating our 10th anniversary. So if it's something unique and original that you're looking for, the hoodie is a great option. We will be having something that is coming up in the near future that I know I'm very proud of. And when I present it to the legacy members, they're going to be equally as happy with it. So a big shout out to Walter for helping put that all together. But we're so close. We are so close. Just a couple things that are upcoming. If you like your toothy critters, of course, the Batagami Pike annual Pike ice fishing derby is going to be going on February 22nd. Don't delay. If you're going to get a ticket and you're interested in going, get it right away because there's going to be early prizes as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. But this is a great event. And if you want to see ice fishing build community, this is a great example of it because the entire lake is covered with nothing but family and friends. And it is a unique experience. So again, I invite you to go have a look at that. Also want to remind you that it is 2025. And of course, we are going to be having is it our 7th or 8th? I can't even remember. 7th or 8th. I think it's the 7th annual CFN retreat at Horwood Lake Lodge. This year, it's August 10th to the 16th. That, of course, is what it's going to cost you. And over to the left, or maybe it's your right, that's what it includes. So, of course, please reach out to Doris and Warren, and they will make sure to get your butt booked in a bed. And, of course, it is Monster Monday. And what's a Monster Monday without a Camp McIntosh post? Of course, our 4th annual OFC Nation retreat is going to be happening September 24th to the 28th. That's what it's going to cost. It's a couple extra days. It was something that the anglers asked for, and some of the returning folks as well. So we've worked it out with Camp McIntosh, who are very willing to open up their doors for a couple extra days. So again, if you are looking to join us, please do so. Andre and Tracy are looking forward to your call. Now, lots of other things to discuss as well. I want to keep it to a minimum because we got lots of shows to fill up. So I don't want to announce everything tonight, but stay tuned, man. There's so much going on in CFN land. One thing that I do want to bring to your attention, of course, that is upcoming, and it is almost a month away, but of course, it is our first show, first of 3, Sunday, February 9th. We're going to be in Chatham from 9 to 3. Hopefully going to see all of these wonderful folks there, but and a few others. We're going to be at the John Bewdley Convention Center in Chatham. Again, there's still room, still vendor spots available. So please, we're going to reach out to Brad and get your butts booked at the show. As I said, this is more than just a show. It is a show of support to the Canadian tackle industry. And at the end of the day, we'd love for you guys to just show out, to show support for those here on this side of the pond producing some incredible things. So again, look forward to seeing you out in Chatham. If you are in the area or looking for something to do, again, we would love to see you there. What else have we got to announce? Or did I get all that? I think I might have got all that. All right. Well, with that, let's bring on our first guest in the new year. He's been here for 10 years doing this with me, and it's been an honor, and I've loved every minute of it. We're going to be talking to Big Jim McLaughlin in just a sec. Stay tuned.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
Stay fishing indeed. And Big Jim,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, my friend. It has been a little while since we've seen your pretty face here on CFN Live, but we've missed you.
Still working this cold, eh?
Really, it's still hanging on, is it?
Scary. So I just saw something here. I saw it just before I talked to you guys, and I am absolutely overjoyed. Like, if I had to say to you, when it comes in the fishing world, the person that I blame all this on, who would it be?
Al Linder.
Well, my buddy, a few years ago, he lost his wife after a long string of illnesses and stuff. And, you often think, that the guy's broken, as he would be after that. And I just saw a post on Linder's Angling Edge here, and he introduced his new wife. He got married.
No way.
Yeah, there he is with her there. And they met at his church, and it's priceless. Eh? He says here, Carrie loves the Lord, baking, fishing, and most of all me. What a gem. I'm ecstatic. Like, if you could look at my belly right now, it's just like this.
That's amazing.
Yep. I'm so happy for him. I never thought that would happen, eh?
No, well, I never thought it would happen, but I mean, he's so darn busy to find the kind of woman. Like, that's a special kind of woman.
Yep. He's a special kind of guy.
He is a special kind of guy. There's no doubt about that.
Well, he's the only reason I'm in this. I ain't complaining. I always joke about it. The second last time I saw him was at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show there about 6-8 years ago. And I was talking to him and I said to him, geez, I said, it's kind of nice that I can see and bring the blame back to you for what you got me into. And he was laughing. He couldn't believe it. Eh? So,
Oh,
but
that's
no,
hilarious.
he's a gem, man. I'm complete today.
Wow, that is awesome. That's great news. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Al, on that. And of course, to your lovely wife. Hopefully, we look forward to meeting her one day. But
That'd be really cool.
would be cool. That would be very, very
Okay.
cool.
So they love fishing.
What do you? Well, she, the poor girl would have no choice. What have you been busy up to, Jim? I mean, we haven't.
Well, Tammy, just like an hour ago here, finished the ice fishing issue. We had a couple of issues with ads.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get them fixed over the holidays because the people were on like missing in action vacations. They just, some people run and they have to take their time, and I understand that.
Yep.
But we had a couple of ads that had to be corrected, and she didn't know what was wrong with them. One of them was, I don't know what it was, all technical stuff. If she would have known what it was, she could have fixed it, but she didn't know what was wrong.
Right. So,
yeah.
Well,
so we got that taken care of. Oh, I can show you the cover.
Well, let's see it.
I've got no, she didn't print a new one for the front, so I'll show you a picture.
This is hot off the phone. I mean, the press is
hot off the phone. Where is it? I couldn't have lost it already. So my buddy brings his girlfriend out last night. They went out on Quinny. I told you about that. They had that nice little spot that they went out, and he catches a couple of fish, and he's heckling her and whatever else, and then she smokes this about 5 minutes before they leave.
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah, he's all over.
And
paper, where are you?
Jim, if I'm not mistaken, we have something to celebrate, not just our 10th anniversary, but of course, what year is this with Shimano?
Yeah, it's 42.
42 years.
Yeah, it was funny because I got the email. At my age now, you have a tendency to get up to tinkle during the night. And I got up for a tinkle, and I looked at my phone. And I saw there was some emails, and I thought, oh, geez, I shouldn't do this, but I'll have a look at it. It was like 2:38, and it was an email from Japan because of the time difference, and it was the final contract to put your John Henry on. So I didn't go back to bed. That's kind of excited, but that's
tell the goal.
Do you know who that is on the cover?
Is that Cooper?
No.
I don't know who that is. Oh, Jamie. That's what. Yeah, boy.
I got an
I don't mean anything by it. Please, nobody be offended. But my Lord, even as you brought it closer, I'm like, that looks like Coop.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good thing. We got this done. That's good. We had a wonderful time with the family over Christmas. I think it was the closest I ever came to I have a Valium dispenser on the wall here, and it has a hammer and a little glass window where you can break it, and it has a bottle of water and about 15 Valiums, just enough, a handful to get them down. I almost had to use it. So it was so funny. My grandson Axel, at times he's a little bugger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his sister's got a cast on her leg right now. She pulled a big Jim. So she tried to slide down the slide at the park, and she messed up her ankle. She didn't break it, but she messed it up bad. She had a cast on for a month. In fact, she got it off today at the Children's Hospital. They had to bring her down from Pembroke to the Children's Hospital, and they're probably not going to have to do surgery, which is good.
Thank God.
And they're ranting about it and everything else. And I reminded her that her mother did the same thing in St. Luke's Park, staying with Grandma.
Oh, wow.
Many years ago, except Jennifer broke hers. Ooh. It was, she healed up good. She was like 11. When you're 11 years old and you break something, you heal up really, really good. But anyways, Tammy set up a table here. I got the table out. We put it up, and she set out all kinds of craft things and everything else. Yeah. And Axel's there doing some crafts. He's 10 and he's a little bugger, as most 10-year-old boys are. And his sister clumps past with the with the cast on, and we had done a little buffet in the kitchen. Just go fill up your plate, find a seat, and away you go. Because it was like, I guess, about 14 of us here. And he goes faster. And he sort of tried to trip her with his heel, stuck his leg back out, and she jumped over it. She spun around and hit him with a spinning back fist. Just clocked him.
Jeez. And I would imagine at that point the glass got smashed and you popped how many? 2, 3?
No, no. But she just spun right around with the back of her hand and she hit him right in the mouth.
Wow.
Just dinged him. So needless to say, the rest of the night he was pretty good.
That's all it takes for me.
Yeah.
That's all a woman gives me a slap, and I'll tell you won't hear a peep out of me for the rest of the night.
But yeah, I know the Shimano thing is done. That's 42 years. So I only have to squeeze in 8 more.
Wow.
Only have to squeeze in 8 more.
That's quite an accomplishment.
I'll make it to 50 if I don't die. And
okay, and that's our show for tonight.
And away we go. No.
Wow. Well, as I said, on behalf of everybody, there's some people that might be listening. Like I'm thinking about Jeff Penner, who wasn't even around when you got signed in your first year with Shimano. So, to think about that there are people that are actually listening to this that, weren't even on the planet when you first signed with Shimano. That is truly an accomplishment.
Yeah, actually, I've had that comment made 2 or 3 times on my page. Yeah. Or got notes. People send me a note and say, "Hey, congrats, Big Jim," whatever. I'm 31. What the heck?
Yeah.
Guys say that, So yeah. So it's all good though. It's all good. I continue on. He's a spring chicken.
That's right. Well said, David.
Dirty old rooster. No.
Well, speaking of dirty, and of course, this isn't to shame anybody, and I know you and I share this on a regular basis when it comes to ice safety and knowing when ice is safe and what ice to walk on, cross your car with, an ATV, this, that, and everything else. But at the end of the day, it can't be emphasized enough. We need to exercise this in a big, bad way. So for those who are looking for some kind of example of what we consider here at CFN safe ice, and there is no safe ice, but this is what we're looking for in terms of thickness to adequately support whatever you see here.
If I walk across it, it's safe, Scottie.
Well, I'd like to say the same thing about me as well.
We went on Simcoe one day. There was about 6 of us, and I'm first out. I'm just primed. I'm jacked. I'm ready to go ahead and on the ice yet that year. I knew right where we were going. I'm out there. I'm about 100 yards off the shore, and I look back, and they're all standing on the shore like this, waving, telling me to go a little bit further.
Well, I don't know that this happened in any of these videos, but as I said, what I want to bring to light, and this isn't to shame anyone,
nope.
I just want to use it as an example of things that, for perhaps everybody that's here tonight will look at it and just shake your head.
Well, yeah, Scottie, because we talked about this. Nobody thinks nobody goes out to say, "Hey, I'm falling through the ice today. Exactly. I'm going to die, or I'm going to make the news, or the fireman's going to have to come rescue me," instead of getting mom and the kids out of the burning building. You know what I mean? This type of stuff. But it just seems to keep happening. You see these videos of guys and they show, and the ice is like literally 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. They say, it's safe. I didn't fall through. But what about all the guys that we buried last year?
Yeah,
that were on 1.5 inches, 2 inches of ice, and geez, they did fall through. It's just fortunately this year there doesn't seem to be too many drownings. There's only been a couple I've heard of, but the amount of vehicles through the ice, my good Lord, there's no end to it.
Well, speaking of which, let's have a look at the video. As I said, this isn't to shame anyone, but this is just to reinforce the need to be aware, to have some kind of situational awareness. And instead of going out and testing it with a 4-wheeled vehicle, spud it out. Like we always say, when in doubt, spud it out. And unfortunately, these folks didn't listen. And keep in mind, I believe most of these videos happened this year. Like you see the open water out in the background. Like I really don't know what was out of here.
That's mind-boggling.
It really is. Yeah.
Tell me it wasn't a fisherman, it was a police chase and somebody tried to get away. You know what I mean?
I'm going to hope so. But I will say that these people were definitely fishing. This is another one that just didn't make any sense. And again, these happened this year. What do you say to that? I don't know. And at the end of the day, you got to get this out right away. People are dying. I'm not really sure what happened when they do, but anyway, I could go on and on, but these are just examples, unfortunately, that I'm going to say they all ended up okay. The result was, obviously a butthurt reputation, and maybe you're feeling a little embarrassed, but try
and this happens every year in places.
And this I swear this happened last year in the same.
It happens at Quinte you can't park 250,000 pounds of vehicles on the ice and think it's not going through. This is scary here. I don't know what this is.
Well, to me, this is when a body of water loses water after it's frozen, and they drilled a hole in that ice, and I'll just go back to it. They drilled a hole which allowed all the air to because that's all that's holding this ice up. I'm assuming at this point is the air.
Yep.
And then once the air doesn't have the pressure anymore, the weight of it implodes on itself. But yeah, you talk about scary. Holy smokes.
Like I told you about when we used to ice fish before anybody went near it down here past Kingston and Bath for lake trout.
Too, actually. Looks like a couple trucks went in here.
You'd be sitting on the ice.
Didn't stop that car from driving out here, though.
But the water would start squirting up out of the holes.
Yeah.
And it was the waves going under the ice, like 2.5, maybe 3 miles away where it was open. And the waves, every time a wave went by under the ice, it would pop up. And as soon as it got windy and that happened, we were gone,
Yeah.
So many,
It's scary. And unfortunately, it happens so quickly. And you think of the investment. David said, does insurance even cover this? I don't know. Or does it insurance cover? No, it definitely doesn't do that. But I don't. How do you explain this to an insurance company? That your truck was out on the ice and it fell through. What do you possibly say?
I think unless you're on a proper ice road, like one that's plowed and taken care of.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're probably liable. I don't know. I guess it's like anything else. If you have insurance and you have a rider that says if you go through it, then it's what it is.
Yeah.
But
so
and the cost of getting it out.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. Small water charters are saying they're down in Okeechobee and they are so glad we don't deal with ice, just sand and sunshine. You guys got it good, but I will say, if you have ever ice fished, you'll understand that it is just as passionate and addictive as regular fishing. But,
like if I was ice fishing, I drilled a hole and that happened, I'd run away.
Done, finished. I wouldn't even. I don't even know if I'd still be on it to videotape it. I'd be done. But there's a truck on the end of that trailer that you can just see the tailgate, and of course, this one, the gentleman had recognized that a few trucks had gone in. And yet there was a car still out on the ice. So even after trucks had gone through in this hole, there were still people that found the need to get out there with their vehicles. I don't know. Again,
you just need to be a lot safer.
Yeah,
a lot safer when you go out on the ice. Like I tell people too, if you're walking, don't if you can't afford a floater suit, put on a life jacket.
Yeah.
It make all the difference. It keep you just in case you happen to go under, especially if you're anywhere there's current, fishing in a river, you go under and you move over 1.5 feet.
Lights out. Yeah.
See ya.
It's been nice knowing you. Honored to have these folks down in Okeechobee. Ice fishing here is trying to get the last 10-pound bag unstuck from the floor of the icebox. That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. Love that.
That's funny.
Jim, we are going to be joining you, OFC, Steve, myself, and the entire CFN crew in Ottawa again this year. Really excited about this. It is still in the works, but I am happy and I have the ability to share this. But of course, This is us traveling from Chatham, which is going to be our first show, off to the Ottawa show in February. We're going to see the whole crew there, hopefully. The casting pond is going to be yet another thrill for all the kids. But the thing that we're really honored and happy about, and Jim, I want to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of all the vendors that are booking spots, and we are almost full. We still have a few spots left, but the Ottawa show has allowed us a special price that is going to allow folks that have never had a chance to show off and expose their stuff in a big show atmosphere. You'll have your chance at the Ottawa show. So reach out to myself or Brad Norris in order to get yourself booked. But I do know there's only a few vendor spots left. So Jim, thanks so much for setting that up for us and making that happen. And I guarantee you we're going to do you proud.
Cool. Look,
anything new about the kids pond, the casting pond?
No, I got some different people coming. I'm just waiting to hopefully talk with Scott tomorrow, just about find out exactly what's happening with a couple of people and whatever. I've had a lot of them respond. Steve is going to be there again. He's not sure about Jenna yet, but Steve will be there for sure. And if she can't make it, Lewis's wife's going to come with Lewis. So
beautiful.
We'll get it covered off that way. That'll be good. And I look forward to it. It's probably the last year I'm going to do that one. It's just, it's just with this mobility stuff. And today, like I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, Scottie, I get up out of bed and I stood there and I had no pain.
Listen, I saw you responding to posts and texts. I knew you were up early. I could tell you were up early. But
I looked at the bed and I thought, no, I'm not going back to bed.
What like Jim? I know
just so I could feel.
What's the difference? What's different from today than on the other days? Because
I'm so happy right?
for you.
Yeah, and it hasn't come back. The pain hasn't come back. It's this morning it was gone 90%. Right now it's probably about 80. But maybe it's got something to do with the whole day because I ran around all day playing Uber to kids. I went to the gym in Kingston. I went to Gananoque and got gas this morning, then drove back to Brockville to drive Grace around, and then home here and did a couple of things around here. But yeah, I was up here tying jigs at 4 o'clock this morning.
Can you share any of what you tied, or is that top secret?
Yeah, I'm actually working. You know what this is? You see the size of it.
I couldn't believe the size of that terminal tackle. Like
that's a blade for a chatterbait, and that's the kind of jig that's going to go on it. Like just great big giant bucktails.
Wow,
huge thing. So the whole thing will be like, once I get them all together, I need to get the proper hooks and things. But it'll be a big offering. And then I dropped in last Friday when I went to was it Friday? I went, yeah, I went to Oshawa Friday. I had some stuff to drop off and pick up, and I made a quick run. And I dropped in to see Mike Nabulsi from Waterwolf Bass Magnet there. Yeah. We had a chat for about an hour and we're talking. And I said to him, I want to do a big chatterbait. And that's where I got the blades from. He said, hey, I got these. I thought about this years ago. You want them? I said, yeah, how much you want for them? He said, $50. I grabbed the box out. I was ready to fight with him over it. So he did that. Then we start talking. Then he comes out with this, and he had an idea for a giant buzzbait. So you can see the size of this thing. It's huge. So when it spins, this little lead ball, hang it here, hits it. So when it's in the water, it just makes a pile of noise. So we put some great big chunks of bucktail off the back. So they'll put the pieces I was tying off the back on wire. It's 13 inches long almost. So it's going to make something huge, eh? And then I said to him, I could probably sell these things for like $30 or something. And he looks at me and he goes to me, well, you're way off on the price of musky lures. You haven't been selling them for years, have you? I said, no, would you be able to sell those for $50, $60? I said, I like it. We're going to wholesale it. So there's like 300 of these kicking around.
So to assemble one of those baits, Jim, you're looking at what, 2-3 hours?
Probably 90 minutes for the whole thing.
I was going to, I'm trying to increase your value.
You'd have to tie all the hair on the, like you'd have to tie the hair on the other pieces here. Like I made a few others here. I made a bunch more here. I sent the rest off to Johnny, but some of the hair that slides on the wire for the bucktail spinners. And I thought this one was really cool.
Oh, wow.
So if you want, I mean, theoretically, you could slide 2 of those on a wire
Right.
if you wanted, just one behind the other, and have the beads and the hooks between them and everything. But there'll be two of these behind this. So it would be like this down here. There'd be one here. There'd be a hook here, then a hook in the middle, then a hook at the back. So there'll be three, 4, 5 trebles on it. It's huge. It's like 13 inches long.
Incredible.
So,
Well, the folks down at Okeechobee are taking a liking, as they say that. Those are just big bass baits, never mind muskie. But
yeah, the size of this thing's pretty big.
that's incredible. When you showed that to me this afternoon, I couldn't believe that.
Like I don't know if the guys in Florida know, I got a fair size mitt, and that's big.
Sure is. Amen.
And
Wow.
the jigs have an 8/0 VMC hook in them, so you can put a plastic trailer on the back. Well, that's the ones that we sold for rip jigging a few years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe
Incredible.
I'll spend some more time getting involved in muskie baits. I don't know.
Mm.
I've been spending a lot of time with Johnny Dadson,
Yep.
and hopefully we're gonna come to an agreement and start doing some stuff together, because he hates tying hair. Plus, I just got so much experience. I got like 50 years of it, so it adds up.
100%. What have you got upcoming this week, Jim? I know with the show season coming up, you'd already said that.
Yeah, I've got that, Scotty. I got to put together a seminar. I'm going to talk about. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. Definitely going to talk about Nico rigging, because I did that quite a bit out the back here this year.
Yeah.
And I got I had done it about 7-8 years ago when it first became popular, but I want to get into a lot more of it, and I'm going to spend some more time with Jeff. We got a whole bunch of stuff done here on Saturday for YouTube.
Did he get the videos? Did he get all that stuff that I sent?
Yeah. He's got them all. He's very impressed with them. Good. But we got a couple of really good pieces there when I was out with him.
Yeah.
They're just, they're not big fish or nothing, but they're just good pieces.
I guess you, bud.
Okay, I got one that's a great hook set. Yeah, you actually hear the drag slip.
Oh wow!
And I set the hook. Yeah, I'll send it to you. You can put it up next week or something.
I'll put it as a
ring. The hook set, you hear the drag. You hear it just slip for a second, like I always tell you got to do.
Yeah.
It was funny when he showed it to me here on Saturday morning. I says to him, I says, see, did you hear the drag? He says, why do you think I showed you this first? Because you're always happy. And then he had Isabel with him, and Tammy entertained her for a couple of hours, and she's just a princess. And she brought me my Christmas present.
Here it comes.
Her Christmas present to me. She brought me a framed picture.
That's so cool.
She did the artwork on.
Yeah.
And that was me and her here back in the spring. She became an official lady drop shotter.
That's awesome.
And I give it a tag LDS for lady drop shotter. She signed this LDS, but I got these things, Scotty. People go, I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older, but they mean so much more to me now. They mean so much more to me.
I get it.
Like you post things like that. Like I had the picture I posted there last year or week with me with Lewis's little guy Olivier.
Mm-hmm.
Sold them up and he was laughing. He had the Shimano hat on. We officially welcomed him to the fold. He didn't like having the hat off, and so I said he kept taking it off, throwing it on the floor. I said, I'm going to get you a hat from another company now.
Or I'm going to get some Velcro, one of the two.
Glue on it and stick it on his little coconut. Yeah, no.
Well, Jim, as I said, I can't thank you enough for all of you done over the last 10 years. I still can't believe that you and I have been doing this for 10 years, but we have. What you have brought to our community, again, I will be forever in your debt, and I know there's others that are watching this too that will feel the exact same, but we hope you get to 50. In fact, we're going to hold you to it, dude.
I'm going to live forever.
We're going to hold you to it, my friend.
When I went to the doctor there last week, my blood pressure was 131 over 66, I think it was, and my heart rate was 56. Like, my heart's a sump pump. I'll probably get hit by a bolt of lightning or something. I'll go down. They'll find me sitting in the chair, fried. Something from the horror movies.
Well, Jim, until that happens, we bid you safe travels and have yourself a great week.
I actually have a little bit of time now.
That's awesome, man.
I just have a little bit of time now because there's a few things, like I chose not to do the boat show. I probably will never go back to the boat show. It's just the traveling back and forth every day from the hotel, and then you get there and you park downstairs and you got to lug up to the other end of the building.
Yep.
It's like a 15-minute walk for me now, and I got to stop every couple of 100 yards. It's not the fun that it used to be, and if it can't be fun, I'm not gonna do it. And it's what it is.
Amen. Well, until then,
it's really funny. I said I wasn't going to do any of the shows, and then I said, well, maybe I'll go to the Sportsman Show in Toronto. I'll just go for 2 days instead of 3, and I'll do this and whatever. Next year, I'll be doing the kids' pond again. The hell.
Right on, buddy.
Gotta have something to do.
Amen. Well,
be safe on the ice, folks.
You
saw it happen, and it happens when you least expect it. Like that piece that you sent me with the guy fishing.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Like, he's the kind of person that gets fishermen when they say all you fishermen are stupid. He's the king.
Yeah,
he's the king. I just couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it either. That's why I couldn't wait to show you. I'm like,
but that was stupid. Then you couldn't even see the edge of the ice.
Oh,
had to be what, an inch and a half?
Not even. I don't even think. I mean, maybe it's just a hole because it was starting to melt, but there was no thickness. Like, you could not gauge the thickness of the ice at all. Now, thankfully, you could see bottom, but still,
well, I told you about the old guy here the first year I was here that drowned out in the back.
That's it.
And they thought that they got him, and he's on the ice like this. He couldn't get out. He was like 80.
Yeah.
And he was frozen onto the ice dead. Like, what's the way to go?
I know.
You don't need to do that. That young lad that drowned in Quinny last year. No, the year before, was it?
2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Like, that's just, shit like that's just horrible. That's like, oh. I think about stuff like that for days, eh?
I was just going to say, I'm not going to sleep tonight. Thanks, bud.
And I talk about it more now because as you get older, the filter comes off, eh?
That too, yes.
That's what I told a buddy of mine the other day. He phones me up. He says, I can't believe it. I said, what? He says, I'm going to turn 50. I said, 50? You're a spring chicken. And he says, well, how old are you? And I said, I'm going to be 71 next month. He goes, no, you're not. He can't even bend. If he drops his keys, he couldn't bend down and pick them up.
Oh, wow.
That's the guy I told you about, right?
Yeah. Wow. Well, hopefully that's not you, Jim.
I'm ready.
Keep it up, buddy.
Okay, buddy.
All the best. We got Lawrence. We got Lawrence coming up right after a word from our sponsor. See you later, Jimmy.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, Lawrence?
Minus the Flash Boost, Not today.
Well, I will say this: a big shout out to your producer, your director, your gaffer, and anybody else behind the scenes that are making this happen for you. As I said, we were having a darn of a time trying to see your phone and see you. But needless to say, the camera, we figured out which camera it was, and we have you here. But on behalf of CFN, myself, and everybody else that comes here each and every Monday to watch, Happy New Year, Lawrence.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, you too. You too,
all
man.
In 2025. And I'll tell you, based on what you have shared with us leading up to this point and what I know you were embarking on and continuing to build, this is going to be yet another busy year for Bluefish Canada and Lawrence Gunther Outdoors.
Yeah, it's nothing slowing down ever. I mean, we were busy right up until the December 31st and just filing paperwork. And, there's no end to it. And now we're having a little bit of a breather, get ready for some ice fishing. Shimano was very generous in donating us some ice fishing combos to get the kids out with, and we've got some events lined up. So we're good. Yeah, we're good, man. We just got to make sure everyone's going to be safe. That's the main thing, right? And you hear these stories, and you read things. There was a woman just fished out of the Ottawa River a couple days ago. She was on the ice, and it broke through, and she was just clinging to the ice, and someone heard her calling, and they were able to fish her out, and she's okay. But just by the luck that someone heard her.
Oh, jeez, man.
Yeah.
And it's the thing, like, Jim and I talk about it behind the scenes, and we are left in a lot of cases just shaking our head, and to Jim's point, we don't intentionally walk on ice for the sake of hoping that we're going to fall through. That's not your hope. That's not your goal. But when you're trusting it with a vehicle that you're driving on ice that you're not sure of, and let's face it, if you're breaking through with your vehicle, you're not sure. There's no way you can be 100% confident at that point that the ice is there.
Oh yeah. No, it's a little early. It's a little early for vehicles, but they have been moving the ice huts out onto the Ottawa River here at Petrie Island. The Petrie Island Ice Fishermen's Association started operation on Friday, this past Friday. And so they've been moving the huts out. So just here's the pricing structure if you're interested.
Yeah.
$200 initial registration to be part of the Petrie Island Ice Fishermen's Association. Then it's $50 to move your hut out onto the ice, $50 to move your hut back off the ice, and then $685 to store your hut for the season, for the summer. So you're looking at about 800 plus taxes on a yearly cost to have your hut looked after, and some of the huts are quite large, right? So they've got the equipment to haul these things. They plow the ice road, they maintain the ice road, and it's just literally it's a city out there with a few hundred huts, and people love it. People love it.
Depending on the size of hut that you have, that's actually not a bad deal.
Oh, yeah. And you see these huts. I mean, they're 16, 20 feet long, 12 feet wide. They build them on location. We're not talking little pop-ups, that's for sure.
100%. Yes, for all those who are watching, Lawrence is frozen, unfortunately, but his voice is coming loud and clear. It's all good. I'm not the least bit worried because I know you've got a wealth of information that you want to share with us. And one of which, just to touch on, because I know Richard's going to be watching, he had brought to me, and I love what Richard is doing. He's bringing all kinds of content basically to me so that I can go over, comb through, and then decide whether it's going to be Lawrence, whether it's going to be Jay, whether it's going to be Jim that talks about it. So, Richard, I really do appreciate that. If I don't get to it, my apologies. But one that he shared with me was a mining company. I think it's a mining company up in Northwest Territories. You're going to tell us the details of it. But basically, a lake that has been poisoned and void of all aquatic life for a number of years decided to do something unique. And they turned on the aerator, or an aerator, in hopes to create oxygen within that lake. And I believe their intent is to stock some fish in it.
This is a lake. It's called Frame Lake. Frame, F-R-A-M-E, Lake in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. It's been hosting a gold mining operation since the 1970s. So there's a lot of arsenic that was dropped into the area. It made the lake, dangerous for human, activity. Now they're trying to rehabilitate the lake. There's also been a lot of issues around algae on the lake over the last 50 years. And every winter when that algae dies off and sinks to the bottom of the lake and then freezes over, when they test the oxygen levels in the water under the ice, the oxygen levels are zero. So there hasn't been anything living in this lake for over 40 years. So they're planning to put this aerator in there. They're running the aerator this year and next year, and they're hoping by 2026 it'll be there'll be enough there for things to put fish back in this lake.
Okay. Yeah. So this is where I've got to stop you, because this is where Richard and I we were talking back and forth about the subject. But I do believe that a lot of the aquatic life, and it's quite possible that it died off because of being covered over in ice, and let's face it, all that greenery's got to decompose, and when it does, it robs a lot of that water of oxygen. So an aerator is a great idea, but I do believe that a lot of the aquatic life died off, or at least was poisoned to the point that it died off by arsenic.
That's right. And originally it was arsenic, and then they used it as a dumping spot for arsenic. And then nutrients, right, from the mining activity itself. Because you think about these Arctic lakes. I mean, the Arctic is a bit of a desert, and the amount of precipitation, the amount of plant life that grows up there. You don't have big weedy lakes. You have these are lakes that are generally kind of scrapes. When the glaciers pass over, they just scrape the surface a bit, dig it down maybe 10, 15 feet. So they're not deep lakes. They're just shallow, wide, very shallow lakes. And that's fine if you don't have nutrients in there and weed growth. But when you start dumping all sorts of nutrients, human waste or whatever, and it creates algae, that's your problem, right? So this is what they're dealing with. They're wrestling this lake back to pristine conditions. That's their goal.
Now, initially, when I first got shared the article by Richard, I was immediately what came to mind right away was, this is, you can't even say it's untouched land anymore, but it's so remote to think that it's been poisoned by us, by man, for whatever reason. Doesn't necessarily matter the reason, but the fact that it's been poisoned, something so remote, yet it is just as susceptible to poisoning and pollution as anything around here, like a big city. So that struck me. And how did we do that? How did we get that so wrong?
But we issue permits. We issue permits to the mining companies to pick a lake in the middle of nowhere where they're doing their mining operation, and they'll pick one lake that'll be approved, and that's where they dump their slurry, because they dissolve the rock using chemicals like arsenic to dissolve the rock to get the gold out of it. Right? It's not, they don't grind it up so much as just melt it down. And that's how they get the gold, extract the gold out of the ore. They don't want to ship all that rock out of there. They just want to ship the gold out. And they leave this sort of muck and arsenic and the other chemicals that they use to dissolve the ore behind in this one lake. And there's been over 200 of these permits issued to mining companies by the government of Canada over the years, over the decades. So there's these really toxic lakes. But the condition for this company was that they had to sort of try to recover the lake. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to, somehow make the lake untoxic. And I don't know what's involved with all this, my friend. This is way beyond. And the article was not clear. It talked about nutrients. It talked about arsenic from years ago. So there's a few things going on there for sure, but it was a typical lake, and then it was just bastardized, and now they're trying to bring it back.
Well, I will say this. I mean, any effort to rehabilitate a body of water or anything that is on the shoreline of a body of water, I'm totally in favor for. The only concern I have is in this kind of situation, unless arsenic degrades naturally quickly, I can't imagine that arsenic's going to be leaving that water system anytime soon.
It's hard to say. I mean, arsenic is a natural occurring substance, right? It's not a man-made chemical. I mean, maybe it's a synthesized chemical, but it would hopefully break down and maybe captured in the sediment at the bottom of the lake and eventually become, just, I don't know. But I know it's being done. This is still going on, right? This is how gold mines function in Canada. And it's the process of choice. It's the least costly process. We're not talking, what they do, where you watch the gold, slurries and the panners and the water chutes and all that stuff that we watch on TV, where they just flush the gravel and wait, get the gold to settle to the bottom like a gold pan. This is gold that's actually trapped, within the ore itself. So they have to release it somehow. But it's money, and they want the money, and they're willing to sacrifice these lakes along the way. I guess the danger is if they don't do anything, at some point someone's going to come across this lake, 50 years from now, and they're going to think, oh, what a beautiful lake. And they're not going to know, right? The sign's still going to be there. Who's going to make sure there's still signs there? So they have to try to do something to make sure when they walk away, they're not just leaving a time bomb, right?
Yeah. True enough. And Richard is asking, the obvious question: if they do decide to bring back fish or any kind of aquatic life into this body of water, would it be something you'd want to eat? Well, I will say by the time this lake it gets to that point, I can't imagine the amount of science and testing that will have to go into that.
Oh yeah, and their plan is to put fish in this lake in 2026.
Wow.
So, but I don't know when they stopped dumping arsenic into the lake. That was not mentioned, and I have no idea when that process stopped. Right? I mean, it's been technically this has been a dead lake for over 40 years.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's hope. Fingers crossed. Now, I do
Yeah.
know that you have a bunch of other news articles that you wanted to share as well. But before you do that, what is upcoming in Bluefish Canada land as well as Bluefish Radio?
Yeah, so we got the newsletters. Another newsletter's coming out tomorrow.
Cool.
There's a few interesting things in there, so you definitely want to go to the Bluefish Canada website and sign up to access that. Have that newsletter delivered to your inbox. There's an editorial in there on Great Lakes. Just looking at the Great Lakes fishery and how they're doing so well in so many parts of the Great Lakes. Right, we're really having just an amazing recovery of fish stocks and excellent fishing in big parts of the lake trout in Superior and Huron, the walleye and the perch in Erie, the salmon and the trout in Lake Ontario. They're doing really well. So what do we need to do to make sure that continues? What's being done to bring these lakes back? And this is an ongoing story, and we'll have more bits to this story over the next little while as well. It's a fascinating tale and one that we need to be aware of, but it also says, what's the role of fishing in all of this? And I'm come to the conclusion, I don't think fishing really pushed the Great Lakes over the edge. I think it was, and science has now proven this, it was the invasive species, it was especially the sea lamprey, that destroyed almost 99% of the native fish species in the Great Lakes. And that happened over 100 years ago. That started happening, a long time ago, almost as in the 1880s. And it took a long time to figure this out and get a control over it. We didn't, for 100 years, the lakes were pretty decimated by the sea lamprey. And it wasn't until the 1880s when they came up with lampricide, we talked about this, that they started to gain a foothold and fight back against the sea lamprey. And to the point where now the lakes are doing very well again. So, and all this unfolding while we're fishing in these Great Lakes, right? So, how bad is fishing? We always hear about fishing as the culprit for the demise of the Great Lakes. Not at all. I'm not saying we didn't have a small hand in it, but I don't think we were the culprits. We weren't the anglers and the commercial fishers weren't the culprits necessarily. They found the smoking gun, and it didn't have a hook and line attached to it.
I will ask you this, and I don't have the science to prove it, but I'd like to see your opinion because I know you've done some research on the topic. What has had a more dramatic effect? The redirection of water through the Trent system, or has it been invasive species?
Invasive species. Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's a sea lamprey. Absolutely. When they ran unchecked and were able to just decimate the native fish population, it was brutal. Absolutely brutal.
That's awesome. George is just saying here, Sudbury has over 300 recovered lakes from acid rain and heavy metal contamination.
Yay.
Time and money is all it takes. That's interesting. That's really cool, George. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting stat. George, please share that with me if you could. If you have an article on that's a great piece of knowledge we're sharing more widely for sure.
Recovered lakes. That's an incredible number.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's I look forward to that, as well as a whole bunch of other things that I'm sure you're going to report. So I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, so here's some interesting news. A bunch of advocate organizations on the west coast of Canada laid a complaint against Marine Stewardship Council's certification of the Alaska salmon fishing as sustainable. And they said, look, this is not a sustainable fishery up in Alaska of the wild salmon. Because they're catching salmon and steelhead that are in trouble and that belong to Canada and that are eventually going to be on their way to migrate up Canadian rivers, and they're being intercepted off the coast of Alaska in international waters and coastal waters. And so how can that be considered sustainable? And they got a third party intervener to hear their case, and they lost their case. And there's evidence. There's strong evidence. So Marine Stewardship Council continues to certify Alaska wild salmon as sustainable. So when you're in the grocery store and you see that, I was just at Costco the other day, and there it was, Alaska wild salmon, sustainable MSC, little bluefish on there, and MSC label. And no, think twice about that. And that was a big blow. That's disappointing.
It is disappointing for the sake of what's going on, in the southern waters. We've seen rivers that are shut down, fishing that has been restricted. It's night and day, depending on what inland river you're talking about, or what area of our west coast you're discussing. But in a lot of cases, our fisheries are in need of some help, some management. And yeah, this is definitely a step in a different direction. I don't want to say necessarily the wrong direction, but because there's a double edge to this sword, and we got to feed people, and I don't know how we're going to do that. We've shown the flaws of aquaculture. When it comes to wild caught fish, there's a limit to that. Of course, it's not properly, or I would say it's not regulated enough in order to keep track of who's taking what. Because of course, what goes on 200 miles out, I don't know that we truly know. But at the end of the day, it should show a concern. There should have been a concern. It shouldn't have been just fluffed away. There should have been a concern, and I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, look, there's ways to manage this better. It's just a matter of the fish are in their territory, and they catch them as they're passing by. They know when they're passing by. These fish travel in schools. It's sort of predictable when they're passing by different areas. It's like clockwork every year. Mm-hmm. So they can tell. They can do DNA as well. So they can tell which fish are where they're coming from. So it's not unreasonable to expect that they do it better. And it's just not happening. It's too bad. But it's not beyond the realm of doable, right? So, we've got to get a solution to this, because this is impacting the entire west coast of Canada. Yeah, we've got some great fisheries still happening, but we know the salmon fisheries are moving steadily north as the oceans warm, as the seasons grow longer. The salmon are starting to take advantage of these rivers that are flowing more often and more longer. They're starting to go up those rivers, into these former glacial rivers and spawning in those rivers. So, but do we really want to lose the salmon fishery in the southern parts of British Columbia and the Fraser and the Skeena and over on Vancouver Island? Just for instance, they just did this fishing tourism operator. They're the largest booking site in the world for people who want to book fishing trips around the world. They just picked 2 northern Vancouver Island communities as the 2 most popular fishing destinations in Canada, and 2 of the top 10 fishing locations in the world. Sook and Iqaluit, I don't know how I'm pronouncing it right, but northern communities on Vancouver Island. So this is super important to us, right? From a cultural perspective, food, from tourism especially, and just our whole ecosystem. So we've got to get this right. It's we have no choice but to push hard on the Americans to get this done, and it'll be interesting to see if this comes up in some negotiations. I'm hoping it will. I'm hoping we'll have a chance to reopen that negotiation. And I mean, it's been a tough negotiation in the past, who gets which salmon, but it's being flaunted now, and we've got to get it back organized again.
I mean, and we see it out on the East Coast. We've talked about Atlantic salmon out on the East Coast, how it's being driven north because of water temperatures. We're starting to see new species of fish show up in our maritime waters that they've been there before, but certainly not in the numbers that we've seen them now. Striped bass is starting to migrate a little bit further north, as we are starting to see. So there's this push north, and we as anglers who follow these fish are also pushing north.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, for me, from a management perspective, and I might be off my rocker because I don't have the science to prove it, but I'm just thinking for the sake of remoteness, it would be nice to know that we have an untouched area within our West Coast where salmon can freely go up a river, can freely spawn, and freely come back down. If in fact they do so, if they die in the river, it is what it is. But at least there's a remote area that is untouched that we as anglers can't access, for the simple fact to ensure that there's a nursery, that there is a sustainability to these species of fish. And again, I might be crazy, but I think the more remote it gets, the better the fish are in the long run.
For sure, there's all sorts of opportunities. It's just, the Fraser is such a huge river, the Skeena, these are huge watersheds, and they're struggling, right? And if the watersheds are struggling because of the salmon, it affects everything. It affects the bears, the wolves, even the nutrients going into the forests, all of it. So it's we don't want to. Why should we sacrifice all of that just so some commercial fishing operations off the coast of Alaska can, rake in some money by catching some fish that don't belong to them?
Well, that's a ball game. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And it just, so here we talked about this a little bit too. Some research on catch and release fishing off the west coast of Canada. We're targeting the hatchery fish that have the fin clip, and releasing the wild fish as a conservation measure. So there's University of British Columbia has done a lot of research on this, and they've come up with 15 recommendations for anglers to be more sustainable in how they release and handle fish that are going back. Again, that's in the news. That's our special feature at the end of the Bluefish News for January 7th, coming out tomorrow. So if you want to read those 15 tips, or you can find them on the web yourself, it's interesting. Nothing earth-shattering there, but all things we know, I think, so we just have to, these salmon aren't as robust as we think they are. These big Chinook, right? They're a little bit on the delicate side, and we need to treat them with a little more care if we're going to be letting them go. And the scientists have figured out what they've done. They studied 1,500 fish that were caught and released and handled in different ways, some in nets, some without nets, some were taken out of the water, some weren't. Different types of hooks were used. And they tracked these fish for the next 10 days, and they tracked their mortality rate. And they said normal practices that are being used now, the standard practices release, means about 15 to 20% of the Chinook salmon being released are dying within 10 days. So they've come up with these 15 tips. You can find them in the news, and all seems pretty reasonable stuff to me. I think, if we can reduce that mortality rate, that would be good. That would be good. And it's within our grasp. There's nothing there that would cause you to go, I can't do that, or I don't have the equipment, or I don't have the skills, whatever. It's totally doable stuff.
Well, that's good to know. George is saying that the MSC has a process in place for Lake Winnipeg. And if you want to see the reports or read the report, it is available on the Manitoba Fisheries website. So that's interesting to learn and see how it's being done inland. To see how it's going to benefit and what effect it's going to have on our coastline. But yeah, as you said, at the end of the day, we have talked at great length about West Coast salmon. And I will say this, I don't believe we've ever had a discussion in the last couple of years, Lawrence, where there's a good sign. Everything is in need of some kind of management, some kind of protection.
Sure.
And, we gotta do better, and we have to voice our opinion. We have to say what upsets us. And to your point, I think you're bang on. I don't know how we're going to feed everybody. If in fact, salmon is one of those fish that we target for the sake of the fatty omegas. I don't know. I don't know what else we do other than eat eggs.
Yeah. Well, eating hatchery, or not hatchery, but, caged fish is a problem issue. Scotland's struggling with this. Norway's struggling. We're banning it on the west coast of Canada. We'll see if that goes through. The East Coast, they're not happy with the pen fish farming activity going on in the oceans, and up in Alaska, not either. We're having problems up there. But the orcas. I've got some news about some more killer whales from around the world. Just little things here.
Let's
if you
do
want.
it.
All right, buddy. This is interesting. So remember we talked about the killer whales off the coast of Spain attacking the yachts.
Yes.
Well, the scientists did a 18-month research on this, and they discovered that they're just goofing around. They're just being naughty killer whales, and they love to imitate. Once one does it, they all sort of pick up on it, and it becomes a bit of a trend, like a fashion. And the fashion is to bash the rudders off these boats. They're not trying to intentionally sink the boats. They're not angry. This is just a game they're playing. And now, the females don't do it, but the males, young males started it. One did, and now they're all in on it, and they're all having fun bashing away at these boat rudders, and to the point where you knock a rudder off the back of the boat, you tear a piece of the stern off the boat too. It's going down, right? So this has been a problem, and they're thinking it might just pass in time when they grow bored of it. But right now, this is a game they like to play, probably like road hockey or something.
Well, it certainly doesn't look like anybody involved other than the ones that have fins are having any fun in those videos. So I will say this. I'm glad to hear that it's not vindictive, that it's not malicious, but at the end of the day, can we now that they've taught these whales to do this, can we teach them to do something else? Like
with their time,
a ball or something like that. Like if they want to play, let's get some jerseys, let's get some, anyway, I that's too bad because there's been a lot of damage caused, and there's a lot of folks I'm sure that are suffering from PTSD because that is.
Imagine.
I honestly can't. I can't imagine.
Well, it's just that and there's an example of this off the west coast of Canada. The salmon are wearing salmon hats again. They're the killer whales up of the north end of Vancouver Island, where the resident killer whales there that eat mainly salmon. And there's over 300 of them, and they're many of them are wearing salmon hats. They catch a big Chinook, they kill it, and they wear it on their head as a little bit of decoration, and they go swim around with it on their head for a while.
And it goes to the point too. And I'm not the least bit surprised. That's interesting to hear. But a lot of folks get angry when they see the seals flying around, and that's a game in itself. They're not necessarily playing with their food, but it's become a sport for them. That I don't know. They're an interesting animal. There's no doubt about it. Definitely the smartest in the water, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. They could be the smartest of things swimming around out there. That's what people are thinking. And now they're going up into the Arctic. So they're going past Alaska. They're going into the Arctic Ocean. And the Inuit up there are getting concerned because they're coming in and eating the seals and the belugas and the narwhals, and this is their food. This is the Inuit's country food, right? And now they're seeing killer whales for the first time in the Arctic Ocean, chomping down on their mammals, the mammals they want to eat. Now, normally, when you have ice pack up there for 8 months a year, you're a killer whale that needs to breathe air, you don't go swimming underneath the ice because you're not going to come up anywhere where you can breathe again. And that kept the killer whales out for thousands of years. But that ice pack isn't around very much anymore. And the killer whales have figured that out. And the seals are just, swimming around, thinking, now this is nice. And all of a sudden, hey, what's that big black and white thing coming at me?
Oh, wow.
So this is getting to be a bit of a problem. The Inuit are saying, we got to do something about this. So, are they going to start, shooting killer whales and taking them home for dinner? I don't know.
I don't know. We literally will be sitting on the edge of our seat to see what happens, because if there's anybody that's going to be able to do anything about that, it is our First Nations and Inuit. There's no doubt about it.
And the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they're studying this as well. They're saying, which mammals can the Inuit in Alaska, can they hunt? Which whales should they hunt? How many? And who can claim that status to go out and hunt these whales? So these questions are all being raised now and discussed in terms of who gets to hunt and who gets to hunt how many and where and when and what species. So, with the ice moving out and all these opportunities opening up, there's a whole lot of conversations that are starting to take place, that need to take place, right? Because it can't just be open season, right?
Well, I was just going to say, because listen, as smart as these mammals are, animals, fish, finned animals, as you will say, are, the last thing I'd want to be is the gentleman or lady at the end of a spear that has just taken the life of a killer whale with a pod of them around, going, yeah, you're next, bud. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You got that one, but you're not going to get the rest of us. And instead of biting, rudders, they're now slamming the side of boats. That's a species of animal I would not want to mess with. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure. Hey, here's some interesting news about Saskatchewan, up in northern Saskatchewan. Did you know that every October, the tully bee, we always hear about tully bee colors, right? Yeah. So the tully bee is harvested in northern Saskatchewan and Pine House Lake. It employs 80 people in the month of October for about a month or two, and they harvest the tully bee and they harvest the roe out of the tully bee. And this is premier stuff, right? This is gold. The roe out of these fish, and they're selling it into their international markets and making some good money at it.
That's good. That's fantastic. I think that's great news.
So it's not just the tully bee roe that's back in fashion. Apparently, sturgeon roe is also back in fashion. There's a restaurant in New York City that makes a pizza that costs $2,000, and the final topping on that pizza is a tablespoon of sturgeon roe, caviar, roe, same thing, right? So and people are thinking, where's this going to end? this fascination with roe and or caviar, and amongst the moneyed community that have people who have more money than and don't know what to do with it. Let's go buy a $2,000 pizza, and people, where's all this roe going to come from? And then they think it might end up looking pretty hard on the sturgeon again, just when they're recovering. All of a sudden, you're going to have people going after those sturgeon and trying to get the roe out of them.
Okay, well, there's two lines of thought here, two trains of thought. First of all, who's paying $2,000 for a pizza?
Apparently, they sell about 20 to 25 of these a year right now at this one restaurant, just one restaurant.
25 pizzas a year?
Yeah, worth $2,000. So is it going to wipe anything up? But if you look at roe sales, caviar sales in general, it is going up quite a bit, and people are putting it on everything. Like they're not just putting it on a cracker; they're putting it on everything, on corn chips, on cheese sticks, everything. It's just becoming the thing to do.
Yeah, as Terry's saying, Terry, you got to head back to the Matagami River. Yeah, I see. If the prices get, well, I don't even want to joke about that. But yeah, if prices get too high, I can only imagine what's going to happen next. But wow.
Yeah. So this is there's it's like the glass eel, right? The whole glass eel situation on the east coast of Canada. The baby eels, the elvers, that are coming out of the ocean and coming back up the rivers, and they're being harvested, and $5,000 for a liter of these glass eels, and they're sent to Japan, and they're raised, and they're considered, very exotic food. And people paying a lot of money. So they're trying to sort that out. That fishery got shut down last year because just the amount of poaching and pure
criminal activity, my friend, and a lot of
guns at play and fights.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're taking away about 30% of the quota that's held by these few big companies, and they're handing it out to, I think, 75 or 150 new license holders, mainly First Nations people, and they're saying that's one thing if you do that, but you got, like, when you catch these things, you got to put them into a very carefully climate controlled type aquarium. And if you don't have the equipment to, keep it at a perfect temperature, perfect salination, food and all that stuff to keep these things alive, you're wasting your time. So who's going to do that? Who's going to invest? It costs $10,000 to set up this sort of holding tanks that can support the life of these elvers, until they're shipped across to Japan. So, this is beyond you and me. We get a license. Okay, you can go out and harvest some Melver, and maybe make $100,000 paycheck for the season, but you're going to spend $10,000 on a holding tank and then operate that and manage that. I don't
All
know.
under the shadow of darkness. Yeah, no, I'm not for me. No.
There's some big problems that need to be worked out, and they're thinking maybe this solution was a little too naive, that they could just take this away from the companies that have invested in this infrastructure and hand it out to a whole bunch of people that don't have the infrastructure, and with the idea that, well, they'll just figure it out. Anyways, there's some potential problems that this has not been sorted out by a long shot.
I would say George was talking, speaking of the Tullabee, he added, and again, I don't want to pass over anything that George says. The Tullabee Cisco roe fishery is one of the most unsustainable fisheries out there. It
Really?
targets sexually mature females. Roe goes to Asia. And then he goes on to say, we blew the Cisco population out of the last stock, on the Canadian side of Lake Superior, Black Bay, in the early 90s. I'm going to assume for overfishing, George. I'm going to assume that's what it was because of.
Yeah, there you go, and then we see this on the West Coast too with the heron, right? That everyone's after the heron roe, and harvesting that and selling that to overseas markets, and we see the collapse of the heron population on the East Coast. So the feeding these frou-frou markets with their demands for this this isn't fundamental food. This is just glamour stuff. It's fashion, right?
Yeah.
It's like when we hunted all the birds out of the Florida Keys for the feathers for women to put on their hats, right?
Yeah.
And almost wiped out all the exotic birds on the in the Florida Keys just to satisfy that, or all the beavers just to make top hats in Europe.
Yep.
And that's all it was for, top hats. There you go. So
hopefully we learn from our mistakes and we continue to educate the next generation and the next generation after that, in hopes that we can somehow find a balance. Because at the end of the day, it's all about management now. I truly believe that our fisheries are more, I would say, more dependent on management than ever before.
I agree. And getting good data to manage it properly in a timely way. Yeah. And this is where the community science kicks in, or what do you call it? Citizen science, right? When we start to report things, and we have ways of reporting it. So the decision makers, the policy makers, the researchers can learn what's happening in real time and not get called to the scene of the crime after to look at the ashes and try to figure out what happened.
Amen. Well, Lawrence, our time flies, dude. As I said, we'll keep a couple of those news articles that you didn't share for next week. But in the meantime, again, I will say, as I said to Jim, thanks so much for doing what we do each and every Monday here on CFN, and you are an integral part of it. So thanks so much for what you bring to our community, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity, Scottie. Keep up the great work, my friend.
We certainly will, and you as well. You take care and have yourself a great week. All the best, Lawrence.
Cheers.
Right on. Jay Barnucz, right after a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural, man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
There he is, Jay Barnucz. How you doing, Jay?
It's going good, buddy. How are you doing?
Oh, I tell you, if it was any better, it'd probably be illegal.
Yeah.
No, as I said, you and I had a discussion at the Ultimate Ice Fishing Show, and we talked about it. And again, I never stopped thinking about it, how we find out through the grapevine. And I will say, Moose shared a really cool story about a gentleman that never made his name known to Moose. Followed him, listened to all of the stuff that he did. And his daughter reached out to him and said, I just want to thank you for being such a huge part of my dad's life. I know you don't know him, but he knows you very, very well. And unfortunately, we lost him. And it just goes to show you never know who's out there listening. You really don't.
Yeah, you don't know, buddy. Like you only have one chance to make a first impression, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what makes what we do really cool is that these impressions last forever.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that some folks don't realize how much we can touch people without even meaning to. Like, I've been doing trade shows and such for about 15 years now, maybe a bit longer. And, I meet some kids. They're not even kids now. They're young adults that I met 15 years ago, at the spring fishing show and sportsman show. And, and I love hearing stories like that. And it motivates, it motivates me to go out and engage with more, especially more young people, but sometimes just anyone. Like, you don't know. We always tell our kids, like, always be kind, right?
Yep.
And, you don't know what demons everyone else is fighting.
Yeah.
And sometimes just a nice conversation or a handshake, boy, that can really go a long way, especially when it comes to doing what we do, which is like just the angling community. And we're all passionate about angling. And so many of us use angling as like, I don't want to use the term therapy, but it's our outlet, in a world that can have some pretty dark places. And I think that helping out, and whether it's illness, like physical illness, mental illness, I don't care what it is, angling gives us an outlet, right? And I think that it's so important that us to take that time to talk to those people, no matter who they are. And that's why I love stories like that, because you don't know in that situation, all that happened was someone just said hi to somebody and made a gesture and took time to talk to somebody, right?
Yeah.
And totally changed someone's perspective, right?
It is so true. And as I said, I'm sure you've had those moments. I know I've had a couple myself, but you're truly taken back because you really don't know. Like we don't do this for any other reason but to share knowledge and to give folks content that they can believe in, they can trust, and engage and question. At the end of the day, we don't want to sit here and just sound off. We'd love your engagement. Like Jay Doyen, who knows a lot about Superior. That, a comment like that in regards to what goes on in a fishery that he knows very well because it's in his own backyard. That kind of stuff that we truly appreciate when it comes to these podcasts, because we don't know everything, but it's nice.
Well, and I think like some of the topics like we just finished talking about with Lawrence, right? And hearing George chime in about tula bees, and like one nice thing about doing research and working in the world of science is for me, I find that the more I know, the less I know in a way, right? Like I was even reviewing a paper today that a colleague and I are working on, and I went down a wormhole into some of the references. So he's the primary author, I'm a co-author, but it's at the point where I got to review the paper. And man, there's some cool research out there that's been done on this topic that I'm not going to say the work we've done is obsolete, but I do think that, just being able to, we don't know what's going on out there. We can't possibly know all the time what's happening. And so some of the exchange that goes on in this show just tells us how important it is to make sure we cover all of our bases. Like I actually, until I saw Jason's comment, like I actually forgot about the gravel extraction that happened in Lake Superior. I remember that. I remember hearing about that, I think at university. But like until this moment, I never actually recalled that until this moment, which is
so we learned too. And again,
absolutely.
We love having facts like this thrown at us because at the end of the day, we don't know everything about every body of water, and folks that have fished it, lived on it, and spent all their time on it. Trust me, you're the experts, not us. So we
know it. And it's true. Like we are only like, I think when it comes to fisheries folks too, like I think one thing that we often forget is like we all have sort of an area of expertise, right? So, it's I always use the analogy of if anyone's worked in a large factory, you got your guys and girls who work on the line, you got your office people, your admin people, your HR people, but you have like HVAC people, electricians, plumbers, all working in the same factory, and they don't even work together, right? They don't even share the same lunchroom, for crying out loud, yet they all work at the same parts plant, right? Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that in fisheries, it's kind of funny how, I get a lot of messages all the time from folks about, hey, what do you think about this? And a lot of the questions I get asked are not even in the realm of expertise. But what's cool is I do know how to look things up and find things, or reach out to people and connect with people that I know to help answer questions. But I think that no matter what discipline you're in, understanding that, don't try and, I guess I should say, I don't try to know the answers. If I don't know it, I'll tell you. And if I know where I can look it up, I will look it up. Right. So
incredible. This, again, this kind of stuff used to be a spectacle where people would drive out out of Gross Cap to Spear Herring. The schools used to be hundreds of meters long.
Wild. Yeah. George's comment there about fisheries and make you feel like you've never learned enough. I'll use a quote, a colleague that George knows, Mark Ridgway. I don't want to misquote Mark, but I was at a meeting one time. This is a long time ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago. And Mark made a comment about, the saying, we're not rocket scientists. You know that saying, rocket scientists?
Yeah.
If someone made that comment to Mark, and Mark's soon, I think if he's not retired, he's very soon to retirement. He's an M&R researcher, and a lot of folks might know Mark's work from Algonquin Park. A lot of his work was from Algonquin, studying like Lake Opiongo smallmouth and lake whitefish and lake trout, etc. Anyways, the saying goes, I'm not a rocket scientist, but the reality, Mark said, rocket scientists have it easy. They have it easy. They can calculate fuel. They can calculate thrust, angle of launch, all these numbers. It's all mathematics, right?
Yeah.
Whereas fisheries people, we spend our entire life raccooning around in an element that we can't just stick our face in and tell you what's there. Well, maybe we can in some places, but like measuring and quantifying everything in that aquatic space is much harder than rocket scientists. And I'll never forget that comment from Mark. I was at a meeting in the back of the room, and I'm not going to say I didn't choke on my coffee when he said it to somebody, because I didn't say it to me. I overheard him say it, and it just killed me. So I'll never ever forget that. It's true.
So true. We know more about space, and a lot of it is because we know the math in order to find it and explain it. But when it comes to Mother Nature and all the variables that are associated with that,
so many variables. Yeah, and that's really where it comes down to, is so many variables. Yeah. Actually, Jason. So the short-jawed Cisco, and there's going to be a paper coming out about this. There's been some research being done and on some of the Cisco work in Superior, and there's some species that were thought to be extirpated, but they might actually still be in existence in Superior. Superior is going through some crazy good times right now. We've heard about these great Chinook catches up in that Marathon area this past summer. And short-jawed Cisco, you got it. It's okay. Jason, we're talking the same language, man. We're talking Coragonids. If you want to nerd out, I love a good Coragonid story. But like some of these species, and they're very hard to tell apart. And the Ciscos in the Great Lakes, like we know Lake Cisco, right? Lake Cisco, which is in Lake Simcoe, for example. But there's all these other species of Cisco, and I'm going to use species in terms because evolutionary-wise, Scottie, they're so close. They're so similar that a lot of taxonomists will call them a flock as opposed to a group of fish, because they're so close. And it's similar to like Darwin's finches. That's what I'll compare it to. If we've ever read about the Galapagos Islands, and each island has like its own species of finch or different unique finch species that have evolved based on their ecology, and some of them use tools and different things. Mm-hmm. And Ciscos are kind of like that. And and they've only really evolved since the ice sheets have receded in Ontario, right? So in the last 8,000 to 10,000 years, these things have happened, which evolutionary wise is a very small time frame. And so when I hear about these tullibees and the harvesting of tullibees, it makes me think about how fragile these systems are and some of these Ciscos, like they're not all lake Ciscos. There's some very unique species out there that like the blackfin Cisco and the bloaters like the hoyai and the kaiai and all these different species of Cisco that are out there. So got to be careful. We got to know what we're talking about. But even with Ciscos, I am not going to plead to be an expert on Ciscos. I do appreciate a good Cisco story though. So
absolutely. Anything that has fins, I love learning about.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of which, I love learning about the fact that we're going to have a hard water season this year, folks. It's going to happen. It's happening. Ice is building as we speak. I came across something that was really, really cool that is so simple. It's so simple. And I'm sure others have already thought of it, and maybe they're already using it. But this just made so much sense to me, Jay. Have a listen.
What we got going on here, Anthony? It's froze. Well, how are we going to fix that problem?
And those were done at the same time as this one.
So wait, there's a gadget to help from freezing up?
No, there's sometimes you can find a little hack.
Oh, what
You got
the?
a little bubble box.
What is that? Oh, wait.
And this one here is still wide open, solar powered, rechargeable, so you don't have to put batteries in them.
Look at that.
I opened it up. It's just a rechargeable battery in there. And it's got a high and low setting. I think it's supposed to go for 8 to 11 hours on a single charge, but if you got the sun out, solar power is going to keep it going, and you don't have to worry about your hole freezing up.
There we go.
Well, if anyone ice fishes, they know about freezing holes, and I've seen the aerator trick before.
Have you? Okay.
I've never seen the solar powered one though, which is interesting. If anyone's ever dealt with an aerator, geez, like those aerators, as nice as they are, they really don't last long in the cold. When they're, it would take a couple of like D or C cell batteries, which aren't cheap, and then they would only last for so long. I can remember buying them and sticking them out in the garage to keep minnows fresh for the next day for ice fishing. And the next morning you out there, you can just hear it like barely gurgling because it was like -20 at night, right? But it will keep the ice open. And I never thought about using a solar powered one. That wouldn't help me because my garage is pretty dark at night. But during the day, that might actually work fairly well. So
I think it's ingenious. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Maybe I've just forgotten about it. But vibrating puck, I've heard, I've seen and heard people use that before. But I will say that
anything to agitate that water surface, right? And anything so that we don't have to touch the water. You know what I mean, right? So we don't like keeping your like. I'm not a big tip up person. I probably fish in a hut more often than not. I do fish outside a bit, but I will say that, yeah, for guys using tip ups, you really want to try and keep that hole open, because 100%. Especially to like, and I know everyone who uses tip ups at some point or another gets lazy, and then you have jagged ice around the edge of that hole, and now you have to deal with. You finally get a good fish on, and now you have to deal with jagged ice around the edge. So yeah, keeping that hole open is really important.
100%. So with that being said, and of course Bruce has said what ice, he's down St. Catherine's way, so the only ice they see is in their glass. But it is getting cold up here. The folks like Jay who are up in the north, they can tell us that Jay's probably been on the hard water.
Oh yeah.
It's happening, and it's slowly coming south. Temperatures are dropping, just like the ice.
I shared a screen there and see if you got it. If you didn't, that's okay. We'll make it work. So I know everyone loves the term polar vortex, okay? And this has been used before. And I actually had some memories come up on Facebook today from 2018, which to me was the last time we actually had like a really, really cold winter. And what happened that winter was and I'm talking mostly for Southern Ontario, so Algonquin Park and South. In 2018, over Christmas, 2017 at Christmas, it got cold pretty fast, and it got pretty cold. Like, I mean, down around -20, -25 or colder. And we had about 3 weeks of really cold weather in January, and that carried us for like 2 months of ice fishing that year. Mm-hmm. And then since then, we've had intermittent cold. Well, the last 2 years have been a bit of a bust, but like 2019 and 2020 were pretty good. 2021 was pretty good, but we've just really been on this warm trend. And the last couple of years, these forecasts have been frustrating, Scottie, because we get the winter forecast in like November, and then come January, we're getting the updated winter forecast. But jump back to that screen. I'm gonna talk about what we're gonna see. So this is just from the Weather Network, and this is what we're seeing right now. And this is great news for ice anglers. And I'm trying to give ice anglers some good information that they can use and start thinking about. And I suggest they go follow John White and some of the other guys that are putting up some good reports as well. But this is what we're supposed to see right now. This is what we're seeing right now in Southern Ontario. We're seeing this trend, this early winter pattern. And then late January, we're going to see, we're not supposed to go to a warm pattern, but we're going to go to a more seasonal pattern in Ontario. And we're going to see some cold weather out west. But this is, now I want to talk about forecast models, and I know these can change over time, but this is a little more detail of what we're supposed to see. And these are all taken, like, I did some screenshots from around 3 a.m. for about the next week. And this is the pattern that we're going to see, Scottie. And you can see here, like, Southern Ontario, like south of Georgian Bay, we're going to get around -12. You can see up there around like Peterborough area, you know, right over there, -12 or so. So you want the darker the color, the colder it is. And then this is getting into Wednesday this week, and then into Thursday. Now we're seeing even just north of St. Thomas there, like Kitchener-Waterloo area, like we're going to see some -15, probably not -20, but minus teens is good for us for making ice. Remember, every night where you can get -10 or colder, you can get an inch of ice. And most of the small ponds and lakes, even in Southern Ontario, have frozen over. I know some of the bigger lakes have not. So I'm not telling everyone, and you and Jim talked about ice safety, so we're not going to double back on that one. But some of the small lakes, even around here, they've frozen over. And once they've locked up, and we're not seeing a lot of snow in the forecast for the next week or so. We're going to see some ice being made.
Yeah.
And this is getting into the weekend. Now on Saturday and Sunday, you're going to see a bit of a warm trend. But Scottie, it's not that bad. You're going to be like -5, -3 for these are like, you know, it's still going to be cold at night, but just won't be making ice. But we won't lose any ice. We shouldn't. And then you jump into next week, and we're right back into the cold again. Now I realize this is a week away, so like this forecast can change. But you know, these are models that I trust quite a bit. I use these models a lot for my work, and I really think that we are going to see some good trends, some good, you know. And I'm not worried about ice up around Nipissing and places north. I know guys, they had a great opener on Nipissing. They were out. Ice. It was kind of touch and go around Christmas about ice safety on Nipissing and some of the areas, but I think it's going to be good to go. And Winter Creel started on January 1st on Nipissing, and Lake Simcoe started on the weekend. I know a lot of Lake Simcoe, they won't go on the ice. They'll start doing it at the access points, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But be ready. COs are out. Make sure your license is updated. We haven't mentioned that yet so it's January 1st. Happy New Year. Make sure your fishing license is updated. But it's so important, you know, for anglers to understand these weather trends and understand what it means, especially for us here in the South. And I like to stress that because this is where most people live, you know, and Simcoe's a big lake, and there's not a lot of actual small lakes. Like basically for a lot of folks, it's Simcoe or nothing, right? But I expect you're going to see some areas start to lock up really well by the end of this week. And some areas on Quinte that got a little dicey yesterday and today will start to lock up again. But please be careful. Please spud your way out. And if you get a chance, I will share. I'll share it to my Facebook page, Scottie. And on my Facebook page, there's that Target walleye spud video, which I show it every year. And dude, it is the best video to me, explaining how to use a spud and understanding the information it's telling you. And it talks about how to know your spud. You know, some people are stronger than others. How hard do you throw a spud? Your spud might be heavier or lighter than other spuds out there. Know what your spud does, know what the information is telling you, and know when you need to backtrack and know when to keep going forward, things like that. You know, understand, and the video I'm going to share on my Facebook page will tell you everything you need to know about how to basically venture out onto the ice and get back safely. Now, Jim made a great point pre-show about getting back safely, and some of his local friends, they went off their path just by a little bit, and they ended up falling through in about 4 feet of water coming back, especially at night when you get disoriented. So, you know, and next week, I'm actually going to bring some of my tools out that I talk about for ice safety and things that I use all the time, like my GPS units, headlamp, ice picks, things like that that I bring with me every trip, no matter whether I'm going for walleye or crappie, day or night. These are things that I bring along, and we'll talk about those next week. But, you know, I saw Bruce Big Ugly, like, dude, there's ice coming for Southern Ontario. Like I am hopeful we're going to see some ice on some of the local lakes. We just got to be patient and give it some time.
Well, who would think, Jay, that we would have to thank our neighbors to the south for this cold weather that we're currently having, because they're right now they took it on the chin.
Yeah.
That storm that went through the Midwest dumped all that ice and all that snow.
Yeah.
It sucked so much cold air out of our Arctic that it created its own polar vortex. And if you go out there now, I think it's only minus 12, but it feels like a raw minus 12. That is a cold.
Yeah, and I agree, and it's some of these weird weather patterns that are benefiting us right now. Now, Jason brings up a point about the snow. Yeah. So we're still seeing a lot of snow in the snow belt areas, and because the lakes are so open, and we had such a warm fall, and actually, well, up until around Christmas, it was quite warm. So these cold temps, they are generating tons of snow. So the snow will insulate that ice. And we got to be careful of that. So on some of the bigger lakes, especially in those snowbelt areas like Cooch, it's funny because back in mid-December, we got a bunch of snow, right? Mm-hmm. Aurelia got hit pretty hard, and especially Gravenhurst and Bracebridge. Barrie hardly got any snow. That was leading up to the ice fishing show, Scottie. Remember? And there was almost no snow in Barrie, and now Barrie got pounded with snow, right? So, like, again, getting back to the whole ice safety and the spud context, understand that how to use that spud, how to use it safely. And snow is a major insulating factor. And yeah, slush is no fun. And it can really impact where you can go or do you have a good machine? You may not have a machine, but you better have a Smitty sled, because if you're dragging a good old plastic toboggan on that slush, you're not going too far. Sometimes some people might ask me, because I'm usually on foot, because around here I'm usually fishing small lakes and ponds where I wouldn't even want to take a machine on most years, to be honest. Like, I'm happy on foot. And they'll ask me, well, how do you know where to go? And some days it's how far I'm willing to walk. That's as far as I'm going to go, dude, because I can only carry this carcass so far, man. Like, I'm good for a kilometer. I'm good for about a kilometer, and then I got to take a break and start fishing. Now, I might move another kilometer or two, but I'm basically a kilometer, and I got to start fishing, because that's about how far my legs can usually get me when I'm dragging a full load of gear.
Well, I have to admit, I'm with Tony. Jay's losing so much weight that his hat needs adjusting. And again, big shout out to you for the work that you're putting in to do that. I commend you 100%. And as I said, we all have to do the same thing. Jim's going to the gym. I know a lot of others are watching here. They go to the gym as well. It is something that we need to keep. I mean, yes, we're all excited about hard water, but we need to keep active, whether it's fishing, walking out on ice, doing whatever. Sitting is the new smoking. So
it's hard, man. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, I was pretty active up until the ice fishing show, dude. And then I feel like I've gone into hibernation. Like, my Fitbit and is telling me that you got to move more. And it's I don't know. Like, I'm stay pretty active. I've been going to the gym and stuff, but I'm just not out covering as much ground as I was in the summer working or in the kayak. So I need to get out ice fishing just to get some more steps in and get some more time outside. And I enjoy being outside in the wintertime. I dress for it. I love it. So I just need it to be safe. That's all. So
100%. And as I said, this is our downtime, right? Like, at the end of the day, we all need to recharge. We all need to take a day off. That's why it was so cool that we were able to take the last couple Mondays off. I know folks weren't feeling well. You had family commitments, this, that, and everything else. Everybody needs that time, that space. And at the end of the day, I'm glad we all got it, because we all need it, because it is going to be a busy 2025. And it's starting off busy for you in this month. And it starts down in St. Catharines.
Yeah, dude, this is actually pretty cool. So everyone knows on the show, good friend Mark Penner and some of his friends, they're always busy down at the St. Catharines Fishing Game. And so this is their annual tackle swap. It's happening in January 25th. And so I threw a link in the chat, and it's actually great. I think it's great timing, because and you know this better than I do now, Scottie. One thing about having a show in the spring is trying not to have it on other shows or other events, like trying to avoid, I don't know. Geez, there's so many things like Family Day and then trout opener, and oh my God, man, there's so many things going on, right? So, but yeah, I got invited from the guys down at St. Catharines Fishing Game. I'm looking forward to going. Probably bring Trevor down too. I think that particular day, why he's not on that flyer, he's got exams that week, so I don't want to commit him to it too much. He's got to start getting some better marks for school this year, but he's doing better, much better this year. And I'm not trying to kick him out, but he's got to go to college at some point.
He's got to know his place. Dad's showing him.
Right.
There's a pecking order. Good for you, Dad.
But no, I'm sure he'll be down there with me, and we're looking forward to it. I love little shows like this. I love these grassroots clubs very much, and I've spent most of my life volunteering for clubs like that. So, yeah, happy I got the invite, and I'm happy to help them out. So if anyone's down in the St. Catharines area on the 25th, we'll talk more about it. But it's coming up in 3 weeks. It's going to be here before I know it. And last night I saw Moose talking with Andy about the spring fishing show. Can you believe that it's a month, dude? It's a month before the spring fishing show, and Andy was doing promotions. Can you believe that?
I know.
I said to Moose, I said, I'm so happy right now that this is being promoted a month in advance. Like, it's amazing. So yeah, we're getting in. Like, I don't know. Kudos to you and Brad. You guys are always pumping your shows, and I'm looking forward to them too. But it's just nice to see it's gonna snowball fast. And what's the only thing that sucks about these shows, dude? It really cuts into my ice fishing.
Trust me, I know. We were talking about going ice fishing. We were hoping to do it this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm on call, so that's not going to happen. And lo and behold, Brad and I were going to go out and fish together, but unfortunately, he's tasked to go somewhere else that hopefully we'll be able to discuss really, really soon. But it's extremely exciting. But the thing is, and I've said this before, because some people have said, Scottie, do you even fish anymore? Like, I see you out every once in a while, but do you even get like to fish? Like, do you like it?
Wild, man. I know.
But it's the sacrifice when you're filling a niche, you're filling a need, and you get the kind of comments and support that we get, Jay, on the regular. I'm willing to sacrifice. I've caught enough fish. I love seeing you get out with Trevor and everybody else as well, but I'm willing to concede that for the sake of doing what we do here.
Yeah.
But,
to be honest, like down here locally, most of the ice fishing I do is during the week at night. So my weekends are busy at trade shows in the wintertime, but at night is when a lot of the best crappie fishing happens. So it's that's usually, it makes for some long days at work the next day when you're out fishing till 10 o'clock on like a Tuesday, but that's usually when the best bite happens is during the week anyway. So I'm just hoping that we can get out a few times. The way the ice fishing's been, I'm not going to complain about what we get this year, because whatever we get is better than what we had the last 2 years. So I see everyone's pumping ice fishing gear. Grimsby Tackle, Fishing World, Bill's Bait, Gagnons, Tremblays. Everyone's got fishing gear. I'm just happy that they're going to sell some tackle this year. I'm happy for everyone. So.
Well, and this is it, right? Like, at the end of the day, this is unfortunately where we're at. And there's a lot of stuff that's been sitting on the shelves for 2, possibly 3 years now. So to your point, yes, the industry definitely needs this influx. We need a reason to use it, because, some stuff that we bought 3 years ago hasn't even seen water yet. So I think it's definitely tenfold when it comes to the excitement.
Dude, some of my stuff, like, I don't even know. I think I got out one day last year, and then the year before I got out like maybe 4 or 5 days. Now the 2 years before that, it was a lot. So my ice fishing gear is not even in the best condition, because it takes me 2 or 3 trips to get into a rhythm, right? So we're talking 2 years since I had some serious ice fishing rhythm happening, right? So, Jason, the palm rods, solid, like, that is a fun way to crappie fish. And I actually have some old, they're not technically palm rods, they're old Fabrils, they're single action Fabrils, inline reels, but I fish them like a palm rod. And a lot of the lakes down here and some of the small reservoirs, like, we're fishing 10 feet and less for crappie. And if anyone watches Crappie Chronicles, like some of that backwater stuff that they do, it's similar to what they're doing. Not the same size, because I wish I was catching 15-inch crappies all the time. But
No kidding.
no, on little light inline reels, and one thing that they don't make enough of anymore is short rods for doing like when you're outside fishing, Scotty. And I've been looking for, like, I used to have a couple of 20-inch rods, like very short, light rods. So you can use a palm reel, and you can actually like use yourself as a windbreak, and you could almost, well, I call it sight fishing. And I have sight fished them doing that when you're shallow. But a lot of the rods now are like, some of the better rods are like 26 to 32 inches, which they're great rods. They are, but they're just a little too long for a palm reel. And I'm definitely, I won't get them this year, but I think I'm going to start looking for some nice palm rods to go with some of my older.
As great as the palm rods are, the innovation and technology advancement when it comes to ice fishing combos and rods themselves has truly been, I want to say it's been a huge step in the right direction. You remember when we had the 2 eyelet rods fishing for lake trout?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Talk about the impossible mission.
like now, using like inline reels, like an inline reel, for example, like you can use straight fluorocarbon now and no line twist, because the line comes off the reel straight, right? So like, and fluorocarbon is stronger than mono. So a lot of my inline reels, I'm running 2 and 3 pound fluorocarbon, and it's stronger than, like, 2 pound fluorocarbon is much stronger than 3 pound monofilament. I know people are like, 2 pound fluorocarbon, holy crap. But I'm using like 1/32, 1/64 ounce jigs. Like, I'm using tiny baits. Like, I have to get some good cheaters, man. That's where I'm at right now in my life, Scotty. I need to get some cheaters for tying those knots. But I'm telling you, like, some of those fine lines are important for those tiny baits.
No,
and
I'm already there, Jay. I already got to use the cheaters. Unfortunately, I've crossed that threshold. There's no going back. But one thing that was, and it was actually Richard Dunlop, who I was talking to, and, being, part of the content creative team at CFN, we do get a lot of great fish pics and photos and videos that get shared with us. There has been a trend this year, and this is something I wanted to talk to you especially about. It seems like we're catching bigger fish. Is it just me? Is it just Richard? But it seems
I think the fishing's been pretty good, buddy. Like, I see a lot of, I'm trending the same way. And that's even personally, like, I'm not going to say the numbers are higher, but definitely the size, the quality of fishing seems to be getting better in some places. Not all places, but a lot of places. Now, there's bias to that. We talked about, let's go back to these fish models. Why are we catching bigger fish? Is it because we're getting better at catching fish? We are better at finding them. We are better at timing them. Could be any of those things. But who's going to complain when we're all catching bigger than average fish, right? So, and I think a lot of folks are catching, there's been a lot of personal bests, PBs. I live in a house where PBs are everything. And I live with a teenager who all of his friends are all about PBs. And all I hear about are PB this and PB that, PBJ, PB&J all the time. Man. And it's great. Like, everyone has that goal, right? And I think that so many anglers now have that quest. And it's not even about, some of these PBs are not even about catching like a 50-inch muskie or something. It's like, I got to catch my PB yellow perch or my PB bluegill. Like, it's very multi-species, right? And that's what I enjoy about it too. So
love this. And of course, the engagement and the comments are being shared. Guys, really appreciate all of that. Jay, before we leave you, or you leave us, is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we take off?
No, close on Jason's point there. Like, these longer growing seasons are seeing bigger fish for some species. Absolutely right. Like, bass are growing bigger, panfish are growing bigger, pike are growing bigger, walleye are getting bigger. Like, there are trade-offs for global warming and climate change where it will impact some of these weather trends, do impact spawning successes and other parts of the ecosystem. That's a whole other show. But in general, a lot of species are getting, on average, bigger. And, well, that is nice if you're an angler. Not always nice as a biologist or an ecologist, but it is nice for an angler sometimes.
100%. Richard mentioned that he might think that it has something to do with live scope. I don't. It certainly helps. I don't know that that's the reason, but it certainly
Yeah.
helps.
I think it helps, but I still think there's so many people out there trying to still figure it out how to use it, and I don't think it's as good of a tool for the average angler yet. But we'll see. That time will come.
Well, I know I blame my size on global warming, so hopefully it continues to.
That's right. That's right.
I'm just kidding, Jay. As always, dude, you're as much a part of this as any of us. We thank you so much for bringing what you do to our community, and of course, just hammering home the science aspect. And George, yourself, I don't think there's anything that we won't know. And with you two a part of the show like you are, I think we'll be able to learn even if we don't. So thanks so
Always
much.
a pleasure.
Man.
Thanks,
really.
buddy. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, baby. Absolutely.
All right.
Take care, Jay. Again, thanks so much, folks, for joining us. As you do each and every Monday, your loyalty certainly pays off in a big way. And what you guys helped us do was to achieve the 10-year anniversary that we are currently enjoying and are going to enjoy all of 2025. So it's a big shout out to you guys. You got us here, and we're going to continue to reward you for that as time goes on in a big way. Lots of great discussions, lots of great happenings, lots of great events still to come. Some of which we'll be able to share in the near future, but stay tuned. As I said, we got to have a legacy meeting first before we unveil some of the stuff that I really want to bring to you folks. I want to make sure the legacy members give their signature of approval, and then we will move on from there. In the meantime, as Jay said, get out fishing, enjoy yourself, enjoy some time on the hard water, refresh yourself, rejuvenate, get your therapy when you can. But do it safely, because we want to see you come back here in the comments the following week. Love you all. You take care of yourselves. Have a great week. Dave, take us away. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.